Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this week's KETIV Virtual Academy. My name is Tom Fitzgerald. Thank you for joining us here today. We're going to be talking about something that we've talked about previously. However, we have a special guest joining us today, Freddie Rodriguez from Nucor Warehouse System. He's going to be talking a little bit about some of the things that we here at KETIV have worked and done with Nucor Warehouse Systems around developing an automation solution that gives them a competitive advantage over some of their competitors in terms of the types of industries, the manufacturing industry in which they're in. So thank you once again for joining. And before we get into the presentation, I just want to make sure that we cover a couple of things as we about some of the upcoming events that we might have going on here. So want to really point out that the Virtual Academy sessions that we conduct here, we have one coming up on next week, December 15th, around preparing to be able to move to a data management solution, part 2. So how to set up for your data management solution. And then in a couple of weeks, we don't have any sessions because of the holidays that are coming up. And then we'll be reconvening the KVA in January. So now that everybody has an understanding of what is actually coming up here, let me get here. At the end of today's session, I just want to remind everybody that there will be a Survey Monkey, a survey that will be put out on Survey Monkey. The link will pop up on your screen. This will give you an opportunity to provide some feedback as to how we're doing on these KVAs, if there's anything else you would like to see on KVAs, if there's a special topic that you'd like for us to talk about. So if there's anything that you might find interested in learning more about different products and services that we here at KETIV can provide, please don't hesitate. You can reach out to us. You can go to ketiv.com. We also have support@ketiv.com at the bottom of the screen here. And then, of course, our numbers, so that way you can get a hold of us. So a number of ways to be able to reach out to us if we can provide any type of service or product for you guys going forward. So thank you. Let's get into it. All right. So as I stated today, we are going to be talking about a competitive advantage with Nucor. You guys have seen me before. I've done a number of these KVAs. A little bit about me. I'm the design automation practice lead here at KETIV. So I have a team of individuals, consultants, engineers, developers, where we engage with our customers just like you to understand what kind of needs and opportunities you might have in terms of developing some automation solutions to really help you do more with what you have. So I've been doing this for a long time. I have a lot of exposure in manufacturing, surface mining equipment, material handling, large equipment. I've done all sorts of different things around that. A lot of exposure to different CAD applications, not just those that Autodesk produces for us, but also, Solid Edge, SolidWorks, PTC stuff. So CATIA, also a very popular CAD application. I did get my Microsoft certifications a number of years ago. It's really helped me out. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about that, you can go to the Microsoft site. As you can see behind me, I'm a little bit of a geek when it comes to some of the space race stuff, rockets, as well as I spend my time as a World War II historian when I'm not doing things like this and working with our customers to do more around design automation. Joining me today, we have Freddie Rodriguez. Freddie, why don't you just say a little bit about yourself before we get into it, okay?
Awesome. Thank you, Thomas. And thank you, KVA, for having me today. So my name is Freddie Rodriguez. I am the Projects and Engineering Manager for Nucor Warehouse Systems. So a little bit about myself. My background is really in the material handling industry, where I've worked in several different roles from design and engineering to project management and program management. So I really have the opportunity to understand how design plays a role from the moment we get an opportunity to the moment we install it at a job site. So excited to talk about today's KVA topic. So from an Autodesk side, I do have 12 years of experience from Autodesk, both in 2D and 3D space. So I've had the opportunity to work with different softwares, and I do have my bachelor's in civil engineering. So that's my background. I got a BS at Cal State University of Fullerton. So really excited to be
Civil
here today.
engineering. Civil engineering, you say,
Yeah,
Freddie,
civil
huh?
engineering.
Oh, so what
Yes,
brings you
yes.
to work with Nucor then, with having a civil background like that?
Well, you talk about racking, and we'll talk more about NWS in a little bit, but there is a structural component, and structural engineering was my focus in civil engineering. So there is a piece there that ties together. And ultimately, once I joined the industry, it kind of grew to what it is today. So I'm excited to share that with you guys.
Fantastic, fantastic. All right. Next slide here. So before we get into it, I'm going to have Freddie talk a little bit about Nucor as a whole. What Nucor does in terms of the industry and how they engage some of the different companies that they work with, as well as talk a little bit about the solution in which we've provided for Nucor warehouse systems and some of those benefits that they're actually achieving from utilizing the automation solution in which we provided. So once again, Freddie, why don't you talk a little bit about Nucor as a whole before we talk about the automation solution, okay?
Awesome. So Nucor Warehouse Systems, I would say historically known as Hannibal Industries. We were recently acquired by Nucor, and I'll get more into the details of Nucor and what they do in the industry. But Nucor Warehouse Systems, we're the North America's largest pallet rack system provider. So a good picture of what that means is your neighborhood Costco or Home Depot. You go in there and you see all the racking within the facility. That's exactly what we manufacture, but in a larger scale and mainly in a large distribution center up to 1 million square foot buildings. So there's a lot more complexity when it comes to some of these systems. So why don't we jump into some of those systems? So we do cantilever systems. These are usually popular in the lumber industry or when you're storing long products. There's tube rack, which is a proprietary product specifically for high seismic zones. Pushback, drive-in, really used in cold storage, like beverages and food. But what makes us different from some of the other common rack manufacturers is we're also a full turnkey solutions provider. So what does that mean? We design it, we engineer it, we install it, and ultimately we project manage it. So when we go to our customers, we give them a full turnkey solution from beginning to end, until we'll give them the keys to the castle and saying, hey, here's your facility. Up to today, NWS has completed over $1 billion in turnkey racking projects. And of course, with some of the large Fortune 100 companies you guys know today, the Amazons of the world, Grainger, Coca-Cola, Costco, Target are some of our regular customers. So how we approach the industry, there's a couple different ways to that, right? So there's dealers and distributors, and you guys can see this as a distributor who would buy a rack, have a stocking facility, and then provide it for some of the smaller end customers. We have integrators who usually work with end users as well, 3PLs, and then kind of the bread of what we do here at NWS is direct to end users. So that means we're going straight to the end customer and ultimately providing a full turnkey solution from them. So if you move on to the next slide, Thomas, I can speak a little bit more about Nucor and how this all kind of ties in together.
Quick question. What does 3PL stand for?
3PL would be your shipping logistics company. So they work with distribution centers that make clothing or some of the smaller scale companies that need some distribution. 3PLs will work directly with them and provide a racking support.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so Nucor, some of you may know them, some of you may not, but Nucor is a Fortune 100 company. They are the largest steel manufacturer in North America. So what does that mean? We are just one brand in the Nucor division, and Nucor has over 500 divisions across North America in which they produce all types of steel products. So that includes steel panels, hardware, rebar, metal steel buildings. So here are some of the brands within the family. You can see Hannibal Nucor Company there. That's kind of where we originated from to now becoming Nucor Warehouse Systems. So ultimately, Nucor holds a big space in the steel industry. And what that means for us when we go into some of these full turnkey solutions, we go to the end user. We ultimately provide the racking, which we manufacture, but we also bring so much more to the table, right? And that's, hey, we also make a lot of the steel components within that building comes from Nucor, which we have a connection with and ultimately can help the customer provide a faster solution, more efficient solution, and ultimately more cost-effective solution. So that's some of the advantages that we bring to the table being part of the Nucor family. But again, we are just one division within the Nucor umbrella, which we're excited to be a part of.
Fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about, why did you come to KETIV? What was it that you actually needed? What kind of problem did you guys need to solve in order to be able to, be a little bit more efficient and optimize your process?
Great question, Thomas. And ultimately, it just came down to the output within our customers, right? We went over some of those larger customers. As you guys can imagine, the output of opportunities that we're quoting is just rapid within our team. And one of the answers is, do we continue to add more bodies to support, or can we automate some of our processes to ultimately be more efficient? So, Nucor is definitely one of the fast-growing companies in the industry, and they're also a leader in the material handling industry. So we wanted to set the standard of how we can support our customers. And we knew we needed to improve on the way we have our processes today. And that's ultimately where we decided, well, let's work with KETIV and see what solutions we can put in place. Well, in order to understand what the solution would be, we had to answer the questions of the areas of what we wanted to improve on. So there's a couple main ones, right? And the most important one is the process cycle time reduction. We knew we needed to improve the time it takes from the moment we get an opportunity to the moment we give the customer their quote. So we knew we wanted to automate, and that included drawings, a bill of materials, and a proposal. We understood the need for 3D drawings and what that means for our customer base, where historically we were really working within the 2D space, as that's what's common between the material handling industry. We wanted to improve our efficiency in deliverables, less mistakes, and ultimately be able to generate an accurate bill of materials. So now that we defined the areas that we needed to improve, we set some goals, right? In order to be able to implement a new process, we need to understand what we want to get out of it in terms of goals. And those were really simple for us, right? We wanted to reduce the material returns by 50%, right? Which is ultimately a reflection of the mistakes we can make within the quoting process. Automating and creating standards will ultimately improve that. This is the most important one for me, was improve turnaround time by 75%. As you guys know, if you don't have time to quote it and you don't quote it, then you don't get the opportunity. So we felt that we were leaving opportunities at the door. So being able to improve our turnaround time by 75% would change the way we work with our customers and how we approach the industry. And ultimately, we wanted to automate the process. We understand automation and what it's doing to our industry, and not only our industry, but across the network, right? So we wanted to be the first and leaders in understanding how do we automate some of this process. So that's kind of how the need and the goal kind of originated, in which we reached out to KETIV. So I'll get more into the details of what the deliverable looked like and how we changed some of that to be able to serve our customers a lot more efficient. All right. So after some back and forth discussions with KETIV and understanding the need and setting some goals, that's where Rack Builder ultimately originated from. So Rack Builder is an Inventure plugin. Ultimately, our designers work in Inventure. So creating a platform where it would be specific to what we already use made the most sense for our design team. So it's a Inventure plugin, as you guys can see to the right. It's as easy as a few buttons to the right. So now let's understand what Rack Builder introduced to our design team and ultimately across the board. So it was an ability to generate a 3D racking system, and it was automated. So it's table driven. You go ahead and put your values of what the system will look like, and the system will then be automated. So as you can see to your right, a full 3D drawing summarizing all the components within that system. The beauty of it is that the system is actually customized to what I would say is the Nucor warehouse systems products and specifications. And what that means for us is once the drawing was generated, we were then able to go ahead and generate a bill of materials, and that was automated. We were able to generate a proposal, and that was automated. So ultimately, all the details involved in the system were all automated from a table-driven interface in which we can then provide our customer with drawings, both in 2D and 3D. We can provide our customer with a full detailed bill of materials, and then we can provide our customer with a bid, ultimately a proposal of what the system would cost. And this really changed the way we work within our teams and communicated with our customers.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. Why don't we talk a little bit about what your previous process was relative to your new process once you started implementing the rack builder?
Yeah, great question, Thomas. So there's a couple of flow charts here identifying our previous process and where we're at today. So I'll start with the left, which was historically the process we had within NWS. It's you get an opportunity, you get an RFQ. The very first thing you need to do in that situation is engineer the system. So we'll work on engineering. Once you get the values of the engineering, that's where you really get into the weeds of designing the system, getting a bill of materials. So to your left, you see a square, and there's 4 different bubbles within that square. And historically, that would be potentially 4 different bodies of people working through this process at the same time, from a designer to someone creating drawings, someone creating a bill of materials, and then our salesperson gathering all that information and manually putting it in a report that we will say is our proposal. So as you guys can imagine, 4 different people working within the realm and ultimately trying to turn around an opportunity, which can be within a few days to even within 24 hours. We knew we needed to change that process. So to the right, you can now see the more efficient process, right? So we start with an RFQ that hasn't changed. We still go out and engineer the system, but now once the values of the engineering comes in, we input the values into the Rack Builder table-driven data interface, and Rack Builder automatically automates a proposal within minutes. So as you can imagine, the opportunities that we now can go out and get because of how efficient we are in turning these opportunities around has drastically helped not only our team, but ultimately our customer base in understanding, when we reach out to NWS, their service is just out of this place, right, in terms of getting us a quick answer. So Rack Builder has definitely improved not only the way we communicate internally, but the way we communicate with our customers.
So as I'm looking at this box on the left-hand side here, Freddie, and I'm noticing that you have, design drawings and BOM, and that's very engineering related, but you also have sales in there. Does sales interact with the solution that KETIV provided, or the Rack Builder, or even more thorough of a question in terms of does it make the process related to somebody that has to use Inventor? Do they have to really understand the best practices of Inventor to be able to use Rack Builder, or is there a learning curve around using Rack Builder where not only could an engineer use it, a designer, but maybe even a salesperson?
Well, Thomas, that is a great point because that is exactly what we're going through now. So when we initially introduced Rack Builder, our initial intentions was it will be a design-based software, so we should have our design team operate within it. But after navigating through it and understanding that it is just a table-driven interface, we've now gone ahead and opened it up to our sales force. And having the ability to having a customer in front of you and put the values in and ultimately generate drawings without the need of having design next to you has really, again, changed that aspect of how we communicate with our customers. So to your point, there have been a few items that KETIV has supported along the way to ultimately train our team. So we do have online-based training. We do have a mentorship program in place where we're constantly training our teammates to understand Rack Builder and how to get the most out of it. So to your point, we started with the intentions that it will be a design software, so we should have our design team use it. But we've now realized that it has so much more potential because of the interface use that we've opened it up to our sales force and ultimately have now improved communication, not just internally, but externally with our sales team. So great question.
That's really good to hear. Now, thinking about back in one of these previous slides where you had a goal where you wanted to reduce your material returns and improve your turnaround time, has Rack Builder given you the opportunity to achieve those goals?
Yeah, I would say from that aspect that the data is still being driven. So we have been in motion with the Rack Builder approximately about a year now. From the initial reportings of what we're seeing, we've definitely seen a reduction, and what I would say a reduction in mistakes across the board. And that's a reflection of Rack Builder, right? Because it is automated. We're not seeing the mistakes we typically have in a manual process of designing drawings. So there definitely has been an increase in improvement there. I'm excited to see how this rolls out for the next couple of years, right? To really get enough data to understand where the gain was. But the initial reports are really showing that there is an improvement, and that's across the board. And it's really because we're automating the process, right? There's a removal manual process error there that we didn't have before. So it's tremendous from that aspect.
That's great. I would imagine, now that you have a system and you have a number of engineers using it, designers, and now you're introducing it to the sales force, I would imagine that your level of consistency and standardization, common workflow is probably improved considerably as well. Would you agree to that?
Yeah, absolutely, Thomas. It has. And in doing so, right, we had a task force dedicated to supporting design and drawings. And because of what Rack Builder brought to the table, we've been able to optimize people's time in different matters, and ultimately R&D support, right, and understanding how we can continue to improve our designs. So there definitely has been an improvement there as well. And what I'll add as well is, Rack Builder was an automation process from the design aspect, but now that we have Rack Builder and we know that it is data that's being automated within the software, we do have an RP system, right, in which we enter orders and ultimately convert those orders for production. We're working now towards a direction where the information that is being automated between Rack Builder can be directly automated to our RP system so that we can go ahead and automate the full process, right? From the moment we get an opportunity and quote it, it pops up in our system, and ultimately we can shoot that information over to production and make the order. And that's the ultimate goal, right? We automate that, and we're really improving our efficiency, improving our margins for error, and that's where we're trending to today.
That's really interesting to hear, because we here at KETIV are trying to work more closely with other customers as well, just like Nucor, around being able to optimize a workflow and a process. And there's a couple of things that you just said that really kind of resonated with me in terms of connecting different systems together. I'm sure all the individuals that are on the call right now, you may be in an environment where you have to engage with a number of different systems, where you put some information in one system and then you have to turn around and put similar or dependent information into a different system. Being able to connect those systems together to create what we call a digital pipeline. You put information in one end and you don't have to touch it manually. A human being doesn't have to interact and engage with that data from the time that you put it in, using these connected systems, using these automated processes in order to then generate that output on the back end. So I can see how that could be extremely valuable, Freddie. All right.
Yeah, so absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about the competitive advantage that Rack Builder gives you. You've talked about being able to reduce some of your rework, being able to address requests for quotes a lot faster. How do you feel like this has helped you relative to your competitors? Do you see more business in that regard, or are you seeing any shifting within the industry with your competitors? Maybe more of your competitors wanting to develop some automation solutions themselves?
Yeah, absolutely, right. And I see you have a few points noted here. What I would say, just the initial reaction from the industry, is that typically you don't see these type of automated 3D drawings from a racking manufacturer, right? It just isn't something that has been historically provided. So the initial reaction, as you can imagine, is impressive. And what that's allowed us to do is bring more business in, right? And ultimately expand not only our current customer base, but ultimately expand our customer base across the network. And then going back to some of the points you have here, right? Allows more time for R&D is one that we drastically just didn't have the time for. And now that we automate this process, we have a full team of designers focused on how do we get more efficient on our designs, right? Versus just automating. Now we can focus on, was that the right approach? And being able to do that is what's going to make us the industry leader, not just today, but for the future. So I'll cover a few more of these points here because they really do hit where we've seen some of the competitive advantages. Obviously, it's a discussion point when a company brings the software of this type. So it does attract some talent. People want to go where the talent's going. So we've gotten some great requests for people wanting to join our team. And we're actually looking to make some hires here in the next 1 to 2 months from a design engineering aspect, ultimately to focus more on the R&D and kind of not where we are today, but where we're going tomorrow. So we're really excited about that. It's allowed us to have a better quality of product, better quality of service, and ultimately, what I'll say is set the standard, right? We have a lot of competitors, but we've always wanted to set the standard, and being able to take this step forward and work with KETIV has allowed us to do that.
That's great. That's really great to hear, Freddie. One of the bullet points that I put up in here is really around facilitates Industry 4.0. Now, are you guys using any machinery in your manufacturing process that can actually leverage the data directly that you're producing from Rack Builder? Or are you guys, is that maybe even a thought that you might be, entertaining going into the future of being able to take that information, once again, thinking about that digital pipeline and putting data in on the front end, and then being able to consume that data through your entire process? Or are you really just focusing more on just the sales and engineering aspects of it all?
So that's a great point. It's actually been more of a discussion the last few months than it's been the last 10 years, right? And what I want to note by that is currently today, we don't have equipment set up for that. But within Nucor as a family, there's definitely several divisions that do. So now that we're generating 3D models, as you can imagine, you can send it to what I would say is a CNC machine and be able to get the efficiency and ultimately use that type of equipment. So now internally, we're having discussions around, does it make sense to bring some of that equipment here, right? Mm-hmm. Where before it hasn't been a topic, it's been a bigger topic in our meetings today. And it's something that, to your point, is going to facilitate where we're going tomorrow. So we're going to continue to build off what we're building today and just figure out ways that we can improve not just design and engineering, but production, sales, and everything in between. So again, we're excited for where that can go.
Fantastic. One last question for you, Freddie. Considering the fact that there's a lot of different divisions within Nucor and you guys have the Rack Builder, have you had any interest from some of these other divisions saying, hey, I wish we had a Rack Builder in our division?
Yeah, there have been questions around, how Rack Builder can work within some of these divisions, right? Mm-hmm. We do have what I'll say a specific niche within the industry in terms of racking systems, right? Sure. But ultimately, the automation process is what attracts other Nucor divisions, right? So the question becomes is there room for automation into what we're doing today? And ultimately, I think that the short answer is yes. So I could definitely see an area where more divisions within Nucor will be interested in how they automate the process. So that's exciting, right? Because ultimately, that's something that we're bringing to the table today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, leading the initiative, right?
Exactly.
All right. Wow. Thank you, Freddie. I really appreciate your time. So if you want to know more a little bit, or if you want to know a little bit more about this conversation and how we delivered it during Autodesk University, here's some information as to what you can do to be able to look up this session. It was recorded previously. There's some additional information in the Autodesk University recording. And if you are interested, it's the Design Automation Solution Drives Competitive Advantage class. Please check it out if you want any additional information. And then we, like I said, we'll be more than happy to be able to address any of your requests or interests around your own automation solution. So, Freddie, I really, really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us today and giving your personal insight around, what automation can do for our manufacturing customers. So, before we let you go, though, I would like to open up the door here for anybody that may have any questions. I do see that there is something in the Q&A and in the chat. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. I'm glad you found some value in today's conversation. Let's see what's going on here in the chat. Yeah, if you have any questions at all, you can go ahead and put those in the Q&A. We'll give it another minute or two, see if anybody has any questions for Freddie or myself, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. All right. So once again, go to the Q&A section. If you do have a question, type it in there, and then we'll be able to see it right away and be able to answer any questions that you might have. So I do know, just some things that we can talk about while we're waiting for some of those things to come in, Freddie. How engaged were you with KETIV Consulting in terms of shaping and sizing the automation solution? Did you really know what you were getting yourself into, or was it more of a learning process for yourself as well?
Good question, right? And it's definitely much easier on paper than once you actually dive into it, as you can imagine. So we had to form a team, all right? And we formed a team across the board who can ultimately provide the documentation and specifications needed to build Rack Builder. KETIV ultimately did a lot of the heavy lifting, so thank you, KETIV, for that. We really just gave you guys the specs and what we wanted it to look like, how we wanted it to operate, and you guys took it from there. It was a great learning experience in terms of what it takes. The overall rollout of this project was, what I would say, close to 2 years, from initial build to ultimately where we're at today. So it's definitely some heavy lifting there, but KETIV did an amazing job kind of driving the way and telling us what needed to happen in order to make it happen. So,
wow, thank you, Freddie. Appreciate it. Well, I'm not seeing any questions roll in here. I take that back. I did see somebody did put something in the. Can you show it work? Is there an opportunity for us to show Rack Builder like a live demonstration? Freddie, obviously not right now, but maybe that could be something that we could do in the future. Would that be something that would be interesting to you, Freddie, to be able to demonstrate at some point?
Yeah, there's definitely interest around that. We'll be more than happy to share how to navigate it and what it brings to the table. It's an awesome tool. We've done several of these demonstrations, and the feedback is always positive. So if there's interest from that aspect, absolutely, we'll be more than happy to join you guys again and demonstrate.
Great, Rodney. Great, Rodney. That's a great question. So what we'll do is we'll put something together and see if we can do a short demonstration. Obviously, we won't get into the nuts and bolts of it all. We don't want to, share any of the secret sauce, but at least you'll be able to see, how the interface operates, what are some of the around Rack Builder, and ultimately what it produces, so you guys can see it live and in the wild. We have a question here. I'm trying to install Rack Builder, but I can't find it in the add-in. Well, I don't think anybody has it. It would be an installation package that somebody would have to provide you, but obviously this was for Rack Builder, or for Nucor warehouse system. So this is their data, this is their installation. So I don't think you're going to be able to find it anywhere to install it. And then Joe here.
Great point, Thomas.
Joe has a question here. Is Rack Builder built on Forge? Didn't even think that anybody would ask that. No, it's not. It's an Inventor add-in. So it's a custom developed automation solution that gets installed on top of your installation of Inventor. So inside of Inventor, there's a number of different add-ins. Some come with your core installation of Inventor, but you always have an opportunity to develop custom add-ins that you can then attach or install to Inventor to extend or provide additional functionality to Inventor. And that's exactly what we do here at KETIV is to be able to provide, those custom developed solutions so that way you can personalize or optimize your workflows within Inventor itself. So no, Joe, it's not built on Forge. However, there doesn't seem to be any reason why you couldn't do something like this on the Forge platform. So really good question there. Anything else? Are you at KETIV planning to offer any classes to help us design something like Rack Builder on our own? Well, we do have a number of KVAs, both historical KVAs that kind of go into the different elements, Rodney, as to how you may want to develop your own automation solution. I will admit this, though, there is some plans for us to put together a series of KVAs that really focus on the end-to-end process around developing automation solutions. So what you might want to do from the planning stage to the development stage, to the execution phase, to the testing phase. So there may be a series of KVAs coming out this next year that might pique your interest on that one. And also another question from Rodney, is this more using .NET or iLogic? I'll let you, Freddie, answer that question.
Yeah, good question, Rodney. In the situation of Rack Builder, it's more on the iLogic side. So again, using that table-driven interface through iLogic.
So that raises a really interesting question, like why would we develop an add-in if we're just going to turn around and leverage iLogic for the automation, rules? Well, that's one of the beauties about developing add-ins is to develop an add-in, you use Visual Studio, which is .NET based, and you can create different panels and buttons on the Inventor ribbon through that add-in. You can also develop user interfaces that are far more customizable, complex, has a breadth of different functionality that's available inside of Visual Studio that you would not get in from iLogic forms. So creating an Inventor add-in to provide you, that user experience of having buttons within the ribbon, having a user interface that you can interact with a little bit more thoroughly and extensively than you could with iLogic, but yet still at the same time, leverage iLogic rules. That's one of the beauties of developing Inventor add-ins. So really good question, Rodney, in terms of, would you want to use .NET? Would you want to use Visual Studio? Or would you rather use iLogic? It's not an or type of situation. It's what is the best opportunity for the particular situation that we might find ourselves in. So each customer is a little bit different. There's no one size fits all when it comes to custom automation solutions, right, Freddie?
Absolutely, Thomas.
All right. Well, I'm not seeing any additional questions here in the Q&A. So once again, I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you for the great questions, Rodney and Joe. Really appreciate it. And anybody else that has any additional questions, you know how to reach us. Go to our website, ketiv.com. And you can also, if I go back to our previous slide here, if there's anything else you need in terms of a support at ketiv.com to reach our support team, and also our 800 number if you need to reach out to somebody directly and more in person. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Freddie, once again.
Thank you, everyone. Pleasure.
We'll see you on the next KVA.